Now, we go ahead and light another candle. We've already lit Umoja, the black candle in the center. We lit Kujichagulia, the first red one on the left. Then we lit Ujima, the first green one on the right. And we went to the second red one on the left, which is Ujamaa. So today's candle, today's principle is Nia, and we will light the second candle, second green candle on the right for Nia. Nia means purpose. And we have of course, we have a proverb for today. The proverb is, living is worthless for one without a home. And that's an Ethiopian proverb. So we wrote a proverbial poem for this one as well. And it's called Africa is Calling Me for Nia. I may be houseless, but I am not homeless as long as Africa keeps calling me. Yes, living would be worthless without a home were it not for Africa calling me. We may have roamed far from home, but no law was passed banning our return. Yes, living would be worthless without a home were it not for Africa calling me. Africa keeps calling me, and people often see the African in me. People see me as I see them in total reality. Yes, living would be worthless without a home were it not for Africa calling me. Everyone knows I talk different. Everyone knows I look different. Everyone knows I am different. They even know just why. Yes, living would be worthless without a home were it not for Africa calling me. All and sundry recognize the brother of the darker hue, just one shade away from the darkness that is blue. Yes, living would be worthless without a home, and were it not for Africa calling me, I would be homeless too. How about you? Tutaanana, Kuumba.
Minute by minute, hour by hour, you lose your history, you lose your power, minute by minute, hour by hour, you lose your faith, you lose your power, if it is to be, it's up to me, I feel good about myself, I feel good about the people around me, I feel goodness all around me. And it will follow me for the rest of my life. Cause I walk with good. And I talk with good. And I am good. And that feels real good. Good, better, best. Never let it rest. Until your good is your better. And your better is your best. Black people, you were once great. You shall be great again. Lose not faith. Lose not courage. Go forward. Uplift the race. Harambe. Harambe.
Spirituality supports reality. 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 Spirituality supports reality.
check. This is an African set, more respect. I saw the light and now I got to reflect straight back. Here's a little message while you live, and what I got to give is somewhat positive. Spade, the brother's gonna serve rhythmatically. Pass up on to you what was taught to me. That was Afrocentricity about being spiritual. So here we go to proceed quite lyrical. Praise the one for which I bless.
I am a genius. My ancestors were geniuses. My ancestors have made me a genius in all that I think, say, and do. I must declare myself a genius. I am a genius. Whenever I am myself, I practice my geniusness and do great things. All my thoughts, choices, and deeds must express my geniusness.
I am a genius. My decisions must always be in the best interest of myself, my family, my people, and my God. Only then will I and everyone I know that I am a genius.
I am a genius. At all times, my geniusness must reflect my culture. My geniusness must serve my God. My geniusness must make me be one in love and harmony with my family. My geniusness must protect my people. Yes, at all times I must demonstrate excellence because I am a genius. What is a lion without his pride? What is a whale without his pod? What is a monkey without his troop? What is a wolf without his pack? The answer is very simple. They are the same thing that a human being is without a tribe. Pray. All right, family, get ready. We're about to get started with this divine conversation. Three, two, one. 1.5. 1.25. I ain't got my scene ready. 1 3/4. Where you at? Where my scene at? Empty display. That's what I want right there. Boom. Let's get it. All right. Here we go, family. We want to welcome you. We want to welcome you. Right now, we are on Divine Conversation, and today we are featuring Sister Dr. Reba Kelsey. I'm going to turn it over to Elder Alona so that we can get moving with the program. We're trying to be as close to being on time as possible. So here we go.
Again, good morning. Jambo, Hotep, Abaris Asabui. How is everyone this morning? Thank you for joining us. We usually we open and with a word of wisdom. So, welcome, Elder Mariba. I see you have joined us. Welcome. Let's go. Do we have a word of wisdom from Nation Builder Kwame? Can you give us something, please?
Good morning, family. Let us go in and bring out what is the best in all of us. Let us open our ears, our minds wide enough to take in what we can digest. And then let that be reflected in what we think, what we say, and what we do. Ashe.
Ashe, thank you, Nation Builder. Excuse me, an Elder Darrell or Elder Phillips, would you give us a word of wisdom, please? Elder Phillips, can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Words of wisdom. Well, let me give honor and respect to my ancestors and invite them into the conversation. And let us listen with open heart and ears to learn and take away and continue to grow the village. Ashe.
Ashe. Elder Darrell?
I'd like to defer to Baba Kelsey.
Elder Mariba, we still don't hear you. Okay, well, we'll get back to Elder Mariba because he's having some technical issues with his sound because we can't hear him. We then go to announcements. Are there announcements that we can give to the community? I know one announcement I can make on the 29th of August. There's going to be an event at 4343 East Livingston. A number of people know it as the Berry's Place. They're having some vendors. You bring your mask and your chairs for social distancing. It's a conversation that's going to be going on there. I know they're going to also have some Tai Chi going on. So that's coming up. I think it's from 2 to 6 on the 29th. Are there any other things that we need to make the community aware of that you know of that's coming up? We'll have Raw Rising in September, around the third week. We'll get back to you on the date for that, but because we acknowledge the change of seasons. And so the next one will be coming up in September. Were there any other announcements?
Yes, I have an announcement on the 29th. If you haven't announced it already, I had to step away. Zuberi's place at 4343 Livingston Avenue is going to be having vendors there, a couple of food trucks there, and they're going to have the brother from ADOS Columbus will be there speaking about ADOS and their plan as far as reparations are concerned. And also, I think there's somebody who's going to be coming in to speak about voting, what it means, what's the power in it, and how and different things regarding voting. I believe Ilumala said, and possibly we might get somebody in from the UNIA. I'm working on that. So just come on by, shop. You can eat and you can get some knowledge. And that's from 2 to 8 on the 29th, from 2 to 8, 4343 Livingston Avenue by Hamilton Road.
Are there any other announcements? If not, we'll move on to our featured speaker. Oh my goodness, my kettle is going crazy. Let me get it off.
So right now, we want to introduce to the family. Well, she don't really need introduction, but we want to introduce Dr. Reba Kelsey to start us off, and then we will go on and do the conversation around the subjects that she covered. If you could you do a brief review of what we went over
Sure.
last week, and then we can start having the conversation, if that's cool with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Hotep family, may I have permission from the elders to speak? I see Mama. Thank you.
Yeah, we all
I
got
saw
it.
your hand up.
You're all on mute trying to find the button.
Thank you. All right. Well, it's good to be together again this Sunday, just to have some discussion around what we discussed a few weeks ago. And as you'll remember, we talked about being healthy, wealthy, and wise, and specifically using the book authored by my father on being healthy, wealthy, and wise, a process for African people, and talking about the ideas that were lifted in that book as really as a model for the way that we can grow as a community, as a family, and the way that we can really deal with kind of living in this current social structure that we're in, and still rise above the circumstances to restore ourselves to our traditional greatness. Essentially, is really what the book is talking about. And it does it in the context of discussing the various stages of development, from preconception on through ancestorhood, in fact. And so at each of those stages, there are key elements that must be achieved at each of those stages. There is the support team that is in place that helps the family member to grow and to achieve those important steps within the stages of development. And then there's also just kind of an understanding of how within those support teams that we really grow. So as we talked about health, remember that health was described as oneness of mind, body, and spirit. Wealth was talking about the strength of the collective, and that's where those support teams play a significant role. And then wisdom, remember, we talked about that those are the ideas and thoughts that are principle-based and that are spirit-driven and that are informed by our experiences, our life experiences. So if we can just kind of think about that as we begin to discuss, and I'll just review the stages. So if we remember that dawning day is the preconception stage, and then we move on to daybreak, which is ages 2 to 5, and then the rising sun, which is 6 to 12. And remember, during dawning day and daybreak, that's when we're beginning to, that's where the trust is established and understanding relationship. And through a lot of observations of the developing family member, they can see, kind of how each person's kind of role takes place within the family, and how the support is important, even if they're only noticing that on a subliminal level. And then at the point of rising sun, the ages of 6 to 12, you have the development team and learning about healthy socialization at that age group. And then during the early morning, that's when, having continued socialization, but then also understanding what one's role is in the community. That's when one, has a further understanding and solidifies that idea that they are important to the community. They play a specific role, and everything that they do, all the choices that they make, must be for the good of African people, must be for the good of the development of the community. And then as we move on to late morning, or the ages of 16 to 20, is when we again begin to further establish that and prepare physically and mentally for the I'm blocking on what I'm trying to say. Preparing for when they're moving into the next stage. So, and then we move on to noonday, ages of 20 to 21 to 30. And that's where, again, we're working in terms of the that stage of development where the protectors of the community, where they are the protectors of the nation builders, which will be the next step. So this is, during the warriorship. And then they're moving on to also being the protectors of the elders of the community. And that next stage, and this is where they're also beginning to develop really more with relation to understanding the importance of principle, understanding the importance of the discipline, such that there's understanding the importance of right over might. Because in this next stage, and during this stage, that's where they're really physically strong. And then further that right over might into the nation building, we're understanding the importance of establishing institutions and things of that nature is what's happening during that nation building stage. Late afternoon, 41 to 54, moving closer to eldership. So this is where more spiritual development occurs. Spiritual development is occurring throughout this period, but that's where further spiritual development occurs, and continue to build the institutions. So being the nation builder, that's where we're establishing those institutions that are important for the growth of the community, and then moving on into eldership in the next stages of life. So the waning sun from 55 to 65, and then the setting sun 66 and 66 plus, where during those stages, again, we talked about that's where being more the thinkers and the advisors, and being those the wisdom, the keepers of the culture, and then those who are sharing the wisdom at that stage, where they're not as much the doers, which you saw during warriorship and during the period of nation builders, but that they're really more those to whom the guidance and wisdom is sought. So that's really just, again, a breakdown of those various stages and some of the important things that occur at each one of them. And then keeping in mind, too, that each of those stages, there's an important support team that is in place that helps to ensure that that each of those stages of development are reached and actualized. So that's just kind of our grounding. I'll mention, actually, that before we came on this morning, I had to go into the hospital to see a dawning day. So a newborn baby that I had to see, who was doing very well. But it was really interesting to note that in that room where the baby was, there was already the birthing support team, whether they noticed it, realized that that's the role that they were playing or not. So the mother who was there helping the new mother to grasp onto the idea about breastfeeding and helping her with that process. So that was just kind of a real life example of how important this kind of structure is, and how important that social structure, that support team is for each stage of development. So I'll just kind of leave us there. That was really kind of our in broad strokes what we discussed a couple of weeks ago, and wanted to just really begin to have some discussion around those ideas, and if there are questions or discussions, we can take this in whatever direction the spirit leads. So I'll end my remarks with that, but then we'll certainly welcome our discussion.
Excuse me, Sister Reba, but
Yeah.
somebody is messing with our thing here. I'm getting called a bitch and showing me pictures and everything. Should I come out and go on another? Is anybody else
No,
seeing these?
no, I'm taking care of that now. I'm about to get them
Oh,
out.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Keep on going, Reba.
Okay. Yeah. So again, those were just the ideas that we discussed kind of in summary. And so I really would like to open it up for the family for us to have some discussion around these ideas. You know, we can really kind of have the discussion however we see fit, whether you have questions, whether we want to discuss around, kind of think about ways that very practically we can apply the concepts that were raised in the book, or how, you know, just really however we want to guide this discussion. Or you know what, maybe if there aren't questions, let's talk about if anybody wants to share some examples in your own lives that you noticed, even if we didn't have the kind of very clear instructions and description of the various stages, and including the support teams at each of those stages, but ways in which you saw the concepts in the text kind of played out, maybe even in your own lives. If you think about, you know, your childhood, your adolescence, time when you know, in your boyish ages and in nation builders, kind of thinking about that team, thinking about those key elements or those key stages of development, or those key accomplishments that needed to occur during each of those stages, and how maybe family, you know, and your immediate family, extended family, and community at large played a role in each of those stages.
This is Elder Alona, just to kind of get discussion going. I didn't have the benefit of the book, say in my 30s and 40s, but I reflect on the things in the book and what you said to see how my family acted out in those roles. For example, I can remember, as I'm here and I would go to Louisiana to be with my family, and my 30s and 40s, the elder members in the family, not even so much my aunts, but my not so much my mother, but more like my great aunts and my father's aunts, because I was born to a father that was older. They started pushing me to pick up maintaining the family. They said, well, you know about hospitals and doctors because you've been involved so much. You know your uncle is sick. You go there and you make sure this happens. Now, don't do this, but make sure this happens. And I'm saying, but, you know, they said, no, you can do it. Go on and do it, as opposed to them picking up. They were pushing you into
I think Mama. No, we couldn't hear you there for a minute.
Oh, okay. And all I was saying is that as a younger person in nation builder stage, they were your support, but they were also making sure you were out there doing.
That's right.
And as I continue to reflect, I think about where I am now. I have a sister whose husband has been having some issues, had to go in the hospital and that kind of stuff. So I'm calling nieces and nephews and saying, now you need to go to the hospital or go to her house, check on her, make sure she's doing this. I need you to step up and be the support. I'm here if you have any questions, or if you need me, Watson and I can drive down, but I need you to now do that. Your uncle and I are here to help you, but we want you to be prepared to take over these roles. So I've seen that support team in my family always manifested. There's always been someone to say, okay, now you can do this. Go ahead and do it. We're here to help you. So I think our people, without formally knowing the structure, did the structure.
That's right.
And I think, yeah, so I even remember when everybody know my people up in Rochester, when those kids were born, Jay would say, you got to go on up there. You got to be in the room with them. You got to do this to help the new mom. I said, well, I don't know. And they said, oh yeah, you can do that. Go ahead. And I can just remember, like you were saying this morning, when you went to see the new baby, I can remember doing that as well to support the mom. So our people have always been doing these things. We just kind of have a better idea of what really is going on. That's discussion.
That's right. And really, and you described even the remember what we talked about, the shifting roles of the support team. You described even in your family how the role, shifts from support, the birthing support team, to then being one of development and, kind of helping you to identify those strengths that you have and those ways in which you can be of service to family and community. And then kind of that coaching team. So like what you described in terms of talking with your nieces and nephews about kind of what they need to do and supporting, the elders in the family is part of that coaching role, and saying, so these are those things that you've developed, and now kind of coaching, okay, so this is how now you use your strengths. This is how you kind of help to further define your role in the community, and very appropriately so as the elder. So you've laid that out very well in terms of even the way that, again, like you said, it's not necessarily knowing based on the way that it's described in the book, but you show, through that illustration, better than I could even say it, those various roles play out at the stages of development as they're described in the book. So thank you for that. Are there others who would like to share kind of how you've seen that played out in your families?
I will share. This is Kwame. I will share within the context of our family reunions. Our family reunion started some little more than 30 years ago. And I would help, but by and large, I would let my older brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles plan the reunion and stuff like that. Now, keep in mind, I'm the second youngest of 10 children. So I had a lot. I got to watch a lot. Got to take in quite a bit in terms of learning and how to do things and of that nature. And so, and even today, we find ourselves trying to train the next generation to take over the family reunions to keep it going. And I thought it was, my voice is kind of weak, so I'm trying to keep this short. Within the last few weeks or so, we had our Kemetic celebration. And I had one of my nieces give a presentation. And it was kind of funny because within her presentation, she says, I don't know if you all know about Sankofa or not, but, and then she went on. And Hatim was like, how you gonna be Kwame's niece and not know we know about Sankofa? And so I had to explain to Hatim that in the years that I was responsible for designing the family reunion t-shirt, I would put things on it like following the footsteps of the ancestors, for the mind is trained through knowledge. I would put things on it like the Sankofa bird. And so, you know, and once I explained that to Hatim, just so she understood where he was, you know, so that they would have a proper understanding of why he's asking that question. And she, you know, would understand, you know, where he's coming from. When I explained that, she was like, oh yeah, you know, you're dropping bits of knowledge so that it can be absorbed. And so these are the various things we do in order to push our culture forward, to push our ideas forward, and to have them assimilated so that our young can push them forward.
Thank you for that. Yes, no, that's right, and you know, and that's what we must do. You know, really, it's there are recognizing that we're not always ready, that, you know, and our family's not always ready to receive and acknowledge it as African. It's acknowledge some of these practices as African, and even embrace to some extent. And in this, I'm talking about our families, but really our extended family and the community as well. But even really to kind of embrace ideas that around that are African in their center, in terms of the way that we grow and develop as a people. But we do these practices, and you know, and as you described, kind of planting those seeds over the years in the family reunion to the point where there is increased ability to, or willingness to receive and to accept that idea as one that's useful for us, or as ones that are useful for us. Then that's really often our role as we are at our various stages. But you know, you described that very well, and you know, I think about in my own life that I was fortunate enough to have been reared in a family that was very much African centered, the immediate family, and the reason why I even mentioned that about kind of various levels of readiness to kind of embrace ideas around being African centered is that I would say that maybe, you know, our immediate family was very African centered, and the extended family, while not as African centered, definitely did African centered practices. So my grandmother, who after my grandfather made transition, my maternal grandmother, was, you know, truly the matriarch of the family. And so she was the person who offered wisdom. She was the person who we looked at as a model of kind of how to organize family, whether it was the way family gathered for holidays or whether family just gathered just because. And the way that over time we could see her kind of ability to deal with each family member in the way that she recognized was based on what she recognized as being their strengths. So we often kind of laugh about how she had, for each of my uncles, she had my father, and then for each of my uncles, she had a different role for them. So one might be the person who she was going to deal with issues around the car. So if there was an issue with the car, she knew she was going to contact, you know, that uncle to deal with that. If there was, you know, something around the house, there was another person she would contact for that. If there was going to the store to get, you know, something, and so the person who she knew was going to pay attention to detail and follow that list closely was the person. I mean, that's a very surface example, but I think that it is the way in which we use practices that are African in their center, and whether we know it or not. Now, if I go back to my immediate family, so you probably remember when we talked before that even my orientation towards science and math and health was all, kind of almost ingrained based on what was happening during the preconception stage, when even while in the womb, as it's told to me, that my father and my mother would talk about the fact that our community needed scientists. And so I had a natural affinity then to science. It wasn't something that I thought was that I must have. It's just something that developed in me, that I always really enjoyed science and math and health related things. And so that was really kind of part of saying, okay, you have a role in the community and to our people. And so as you grow, as you develop, then you're going, then you will grow and develop with that in mind, that this is what you're going to contribute to our people. And at the same time, placing me in environments that would reinforce the idea around being African, that would, remind me that Africans are geniuses, that would both in terms of principle and kind of guiding and directing in terms of pointing to different instances in history, different historical events or historic times in history, different people in history that were examples of that. And so those are things that in the very early stages were helpful in developing that African self-consciousness that's kind of important to be developed during those first, 5 or so years of life, such that when you go into that next stage, from the ages of 6 to 12, where the socialization becomes more important, your socialization then occurs with an African center, so that your socialization occurs with you already having a good sense of yourself as an African, and looking through an African lens at all of the decisions that you make, if that makes sense. And so that was something that was being, developed from the preschool that we went to. Umoja Sasa was one of the preschools that we attended. It was an African-centered preschool, and then being in an African-centered community throughout. So I don't want to leave it saying that it's all just our immediate or extended blood families, but the important role that the community plays, because, I have very early memories of meetings that my parents would have in the home with people in the community, where they were planning and, talking about, things that needed to happen in the community. And I didn't, even at an early age, always know what they were talking about, but I knew that they were meeting and talking about something important. And so I took that as, okay, so this is something that I will need to be doing at some point. So, we model ourselves after what we see. And so whether it was said that this is what you must do or not, it was just one of those mental notes, one of those seeds, as you mentioned, Brother Kwame, that was planted early to say, okay, this is what organizing looks like. So, so there was that. And then as we move on, and, and again, all through the years, having people in the community who recognized certain things that I was doing and who were supportive of that. And if they saw me, veer off, then, creating or providing the proper correction when it was necessary. And I knew to expect that, whether it was from, somebody in the blood family or from the community, and you accept and respond to it equally, because those support teams, again, were in place. And whether they were called that, the support team or the developmental team or the coaching team, recognized that each had a role, an important role. And then I won't go all the way through each of the stages, but those were very real and then principled. So being exposed to Kwanzaa and being a part of the planning of Kwanzaa. Well, starting out from participating and having the nation builders who were helping us with, whether it was learning the Black National Anthem as a group of Watoto and singing it during one of the Kwanzaa celebrations, or whether it was helping to set things up, put the chairs in place. All those were things that said that we each play an important role. And so that was done, I think, very well. And then as we move on into when I was in high school and with the food co-op at the African Center, where Rimani and I would call families to find out if they were going to get a fruit and vegetable box that week, or times when Brother Nomo would task us to call the supplier to find out, what's the price on Red Delicious apples and all the varieties of apples and all the varieties of oranges, that I would then report to him. And then from that list would decide what was going to be in the boxes that week. So all of that was really kind of part of recognizing the various roles, along with that support team, whether it was the support, developmental, or coaching team, at whatever stage of life it happened to be, really, I think, has made a difference, I can say, in my life. And I think there are others who can point to the way that has played out, and the difference that it has made, such that when you get to this stage of life, the idea of being an African is non-negotiable. The idea of needing to consider all of our deeds, so when our thoughts, our words, and our deeds are one, or thinking, speaking, and doing ma'at, that can happen because we then have this whole idea about this whole worldview that was developed based on not just theory, but the action of what we've seen over time, over lifespan. And I don't mean to talk that long about that, but I can just very clearly see those stages and the key role that the entire support team played as I reflect on those various stages of my own life.
This is Elder Alona. One of the things you said, and I know one of our nation builders who's working on this is listening and seeing, we're working or trying to, or they're working to bring about education. I don't know if it's on a Saturday or a weekday or someday. The times, I shouldn't say Saturday, what should I say? Kuumba, a school, African-centered education. And I was just thinking about one of the things you said was, when we need to keep in mind when we're building that curriculum, thinking about the needs of the community. Said your family did with you, and relating our learning to what the community might need, and start to plant seeds in the minds of our young people that they come in contact with on African-centered thought and needs of our community, and putting those two together. Just comments you might have to help them to build that curriculum.
Sure. So I think that there are, you've laid it out. The only thing that I would add to that would be to put some very, intentional focus on identifying what the strengths of the Watoto who would come and participate in that school are. And not just kind of intellectual or physical strengths, but kind of looking at their strengths in character and their spiritual strengths as well, to the extent that we can, discern those, because then that becomes very helpful in saying that, there's this need that the community has, and you are specifically created to address that need because of these strengths that you are showing us. And so then it becomes very personal also, where the Watoto recognizes purpose early on. That may be an element to include in that. Specific ideas about how to do that, I'd have to think about But certainly, just observing. So observing children in groups can be very informative. You can identify who the helpers are, who the nurturers are, who the leaders are, the ones who pay very close attention to detail, the ones who are the kind of those who strategize. And so sometimes looking at things like somebody who is, say, mischievous or tries to weave stories doesn't have to be looked at as something negative. It can be directed into, okay, this is a person who's creative or who can be a strategist. Not so much that they're thinking about how to get out of something, but they think quickly, so they can be somebody who helps in, who can be a strategist. So all those kinds of things, really observing, and then get a sense of what they enjoy doing based on what they say. Not just what you're observing, but what they express as things that they enjoy. And I think having those kinds of discussions also becomes very important because you get a sense of some of the influences, the external influences that they're getting. When you have, an entire group of youth who are saying they want to be, I don't know, football players, or they all want to be fashion designers, or they all want to be, and then so you have to wonder, well, is this because of some external influence? Or if everybody's saying that they want to be attorneys or teachers, or it could very well be that you just have this group that has these talents, and that's the best way to direct them. But it also may be a matter of this is what they're seeing, whether it's in the media, whether it's just somewhere out there, and so kind of helping to tease out what the actual strengths are, what their true, what are the things that actually make them happy? What are the things that when they do them, they give them energy and give them life? And so, I know that some of that is a lot more, I guess, esoteric, but I would say definitely observing them. And looking at the way that you see them interact with each other becomes very helpful as we help to guide both in determining determining them towards, or helping to guide them towards the needs in the community. Do you know, is it an idea about you said a Saturday school?
Yes, it's an idea about a Saturday school in a sense of extra or augmenting what they're normally getting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really driven by what's going on with education right now.
Mm-hmm.
By African-centered kinds of things. And I just was thinking, so often we think about history and curriculum, we think about the spiritual stuff, but you just made me think about some more practical things in terms of needs of the community.
Right.
Permission to speak?
Yeah, Bo, go ahead, sir.
Dr. Reaver, this is Kwame again, and you thought what you were saying may have been esoteric, but really what I was hearing was that we need to have the relationships with our young so we know how to nurture them.
Yeah.
That's what I hear. And that ties directly into what Baba Kelsey was referring us to with what we've come to call the 63 squares. The quote unquote intersectionality between the principles of Ma'at and the Nguzo Saba.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I heard coming out of what you were saying.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you for saying that, and that will be key. Certainly having some principles that we can point to, so that when we see so I gave the example of, say, somebody who may spin stories or you would say, well, is that truth? And so remembering, with Ma'at as guide, that truth being an element of Ma'at is that, remembering to kind of recenter our young people on those principles. And, just as you described, I mean, certainly using the Nguzo Saba and the principles of Ma'at as being kind of grounding and foundational, and in ways that that become very practical to young people.
Dr. Reba, I misspoke. That was the intersectionality between the principles of Ma'at and the Neely Fuller's 9 areas of life activities. So I just wanted to clarify.
Absolutely. That. Well, but all of that. I mean, because right. So with the 9, those 9 areas of life that Neely Fuller lays out. Well, we see, again. I mean, you mentioned the Nguzo Saba that you misspoke, but it's very much so the Nguzo Saba, the principles of Ma'at really play out in each of those areas of life. And so to be able to kind of help to guide and develop our young people in a way that, and really in all of us, I'm saying our young people, but we have work to do in those spaces also. But, and as they see us continue to work on ourselves in those areas, that becomes instructive as well, so that they don't think that this is something that you get everything you need to get in the first few years of life, and then you're kind of coasting from there. That is not the case at all. But just recognizing that we have to be intentional about continuing to improve our character every day that we live, like the Kikongo people would say. Mama Phyllis, I think you unmuted yourself. Did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to add, I was thinking about what you said about young people. And I have a grandbaby who will be 3 in October. Mm-hmm. And she's at that age where she's having temper tantrums. And the elders all tend to say we should be spanking her. And we agreed not to do that until she fully realized and can talk about. She's trying to figure out what to do with her emotions, and that's what we're allowing her to do, as opposed to spanking her. And so when you have, and I would say most all the elders that I'm around say the same thing, well, she needs to have her behind whooped, and we're not doing that. So that just brings me to the point that on some levels, we think alike, and on some levels we don't. And so that can create a problem, because if I'm constantly hearing, you need to whoop her behind, and I'm saying, no, we're just not ready to do that until she can fully understand why she's reacting the way she does. We give her, we give her time out, we tell her to breathe, to calm herself down, but whooping her, to me, is just not the answer. Right. And I wanted to share that in terms of, as a village, we tend to have the same problems in terms of moving some things along, because even though as a village we all claim that we're African centered and we all want the same thing, the way we go about getting it is so totally different until it takes us a long time to get there. So at one point we are a village, but we still think individually. Mm-hmm. Not as a group, because we tend to hold on to what our personal desires are, because this is what I want, and not necessarily what's good for the village. And I think that we're still struggling through that, although I can see we've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. So I don't know if that had anything to do with anything, but that was what was on my mind, and so I just decided to share it.
No, I thank you. And there are a couple of thoughts that came to mind, actually, as you were sharing that. Is you're absolutely right. I think it's one of the steps that is important for us to take, that remains a challenge for us, is to decide as a people what our goals are, as a village, kind of what our goals are, and then to discipline ourselves to say that when we decide what direction we're going to move, it might not be what my personal idea was. But after we have, kind of really vetted the ideas that each of us have had and decided as a collective that this is the one that's going to move us closer to where we need to be as a people, then we all should be okay about that, because we're moving in the direction that we've agreed that that is good for us as a people. And so that's something that does remain a challenge for us, but one that it's not one that we cannot overcome. And I agree with you that that in many ways we're improving in that regard. But that discipline to say that it doesn't have to be my idea as long as it's the good for the good of the whole. That's the key thing that we really must work on. Now you mentioned something else, and hold on a second because it just left my mind. But so you about the kind of differences in our interpretation of a thing, and when you said about the time out. So with one of my sons, Hanif, when he was maybe, he may have been about 4 at this time. And so we would talk about, kind of making decisions that were good for African people. And so he had done something. Yeah, I don't remember what it was now, but I sent him to his room. And so he was in and I told him to go in and think about it. And so he came out after a while and he said, "Mommy, me being in my room is not good for African people." So he was trying to get it right. Like, we have to think about what's good for African people. So in that moment, that didn't feel good for him. But it probably was good for African people, because I don't know what it was that he was doing acting up, but he needed to go and think about that. Right. But I just say all that to say, you are absolutely doing the right thing, and I'm sure you know that. I don't have to say that, but you're right. I mean, we do have different ideas about, about whether we're talking about child rearing or other decisions that relate to the community and the village at large. And really, as I'm saying that, the way that we deal with child rearing within the home has everything to do with the large. Yes. So they're not disconnected. Right. They're disconnected. Okay. So thank you for that, and for helping me to remember that moment too.
This is Elona again. One of the things, I'm looking back at my notes from when you spoke before, and I'm assuming, I think one of the things we had talked about, or you had talked about, was self-assessment. Mm-hmm. And just any additional information on how we look at what we're doing as an individual in our homes, in the greater community, and how that self-assessment impacts the community. Yes. And when we say self-assessment, any ideas on what we really ought to be doing?
Well, sure. I think part of the self-assessment is to think about, we talk often about Ma'at. We talk about the Nguzo Saba. We talk about even the teachings of Ptah-hotep and other kind of guidance that we have through historical text and through principles that we know about. And so, part of the self-assessment then is to think about, how do we see ourselves exhibiting those principles? How do we see ourselves interacting with others, if it's consistent or inconsistent with what the teachings of Ptah-hotep say? So there's that. And so just doing a very objective assessment as to how we are exhibiting that in our lives. The other part is to think about what are the outcomes. So when we think about ourselves as it relates to others, when I interact with others, do my interactions result in building, in more building? Do they result in bringing about peace? Do they result in bringing people together who maybe had conflict in the past? Or do my interactions with others create confusion and chaos? And so if we see the latter, then we know that that's an area of development that's needed. Perhaps some, and so then that means having then some openness to request some assistance from others on thinking about how we can improve in those different areas, in the ones where where the outcomes are not really ones that we would that are desired. I think another part of that self-assessment is trying to see in what ways you're reflecting with others. So again, this is having a group of people or peers who you trust, who can give you that feedback on what things they see that are your strengths, what things they see that are areas that they feel that you can improve, and that same thing, those areas of observations that they've made on specific things that you do, specific kind of thought processes that you've expressed that are ones that are more constructive, and then ones that are not as constructive and that may even be destructive in some instances, and being willingness to accept that feedback. But the first part, in terms of looking internally and doing that introspection on how your thinking, how your actions, how your words are consistent or inconsistent with those kind of founding principles, and then looking at what the outcomes of the work and your interactions have been, and to think about what things may need to be adjusted.
Thank you. That makes sense, and that gives some concrete thought to some of my notes.
Okay, yeah. Good. What other questions or comments does the family have?
Okay. Well, I don't see anybody going off on mute yet, so we kind of talked about, or you had talked about on the first day of on October 1st, we talked about those things that we could address our health in this time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I wrote notes down, but I don't know if everyone was on. I wrote some issues that we should address in terms of COVID-19 was de-stressing, eating better, plenty of sunlight, exercise, zinc, vitamin C. One of the things, right now people can sort of go out or not. Some people are really nervous about staying in, are nervous about getting together with other people. Just the health things we should be doing, as well as when we come together, because the savers are thinking about having a planning session where how to just ease into being more with people, I guess is what I'm kind of driving at. And what are some of the, if you reiterate again, the things that we need to be doing to help our bodies get through this, as well as our mind and spirit as well. But time is a challenge for us as a people.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll start with kind of getting back into interacting, in the same physical space. Right now, still ensuring that as we do it, that we are doing so safely. So again, remembering that if we're going to be in the same physical space, that maintaining that distance, so 6 foot distance, wearing our masks, making sure that we're frequently washing our hands frequently. And, part of preparing the space too for people is making sure that we have, sanitized the space well and things, and kind of doing those kinds of measures to ensure the physical safety, because right now we do, COVID-19 remains a reality, and there are certain precautions that are still important to take. Now, it's interesting because we think about, we are very social people. When we greet each other, we hug, and that will feel awkward initially when we come together and we don't do that in the same way. So we can anticipate that there will be even some anxiety about not hugging, which is something that's very natural, about us. It may feel different that even, what is generally considered to be a comfortable space between two people has to increase. And so just, I think part of that preparing ourselves to move back into the same physical space is knowing that there may be some reactions that may occur that we perhaps didn't forecast. I was talking to someone recently, and I don't remember what the setting was, but they were describing someone who, when they came back into a crowd of people for the first time after having been mostly home, that their reaction was just crying. I remember it was a lecture. So yeah, the person was just crying and had almost had an anxiety attack just from being back around people. So that's something that really was probably very much unanticipated even for that person. But just kind of thinking about part of preparing then for that, I think becomes being very much aware of the emotions that we're having right now about even being separated. Is being separate something that for some people they realize that they prefer being being more isolated, or is it somebody who really is feeling more anxious about the fact that they're not around people as much? So just being mindfulness is really kind of what I'm getting at, being very mindful of our emotions, and then talking about them, I think is very important. And that actually kind of brings me to what things that we should be doing for our health generally right now. So while for physical health, we talked about exercising and getting some sunlight as much as possible is important, because that sunlight is what helps to activate the vitamin D. So vitamin D becomes very important as it relates to the immune system. And then we talked about vitamin C. We talked about zinc in terms of that supplement. It helps to boost the immune system. But you need generally a diet. So a diet that is rich in fruits and vegetables, particularly ones that are of varying colors, just because we know that each vegetable and fruit type is rich with different nutrients, and each of those nutrients kind of has a role in the color that the fruit or the vegetable has. So having a colorful plate is a healthy one. Green leafy vegetables are particularly important, and we often stress the importance of green leafy vegetables, but really all of the colors are important to have as part of our diet. Limiting sugar is important, and then drinking plenty of water is important. Limiting salt intake is another thing that we want to make sure that we're mindful of. And then the types of foods that we're not overindulging in carbohydrates, because we know with carbohydrates, so those are going to be your things like your breads and rice and pasta and things like that, because we know that as they break down in the body, then they break down into sugars. So while they're a necessary source of energy, they also can be problematic if we overdo it. So we talked about that. We talked about habits. So avoiding smoking. We talked about smoking as being the number one action that is a source of preventable illness. Whether we're talking about chronic diseases, lung disease, or we're talking about cancer, that smoking is tied to. to each of many diseases, and it's been identified as really the #1 preventable cause of illness. We talked about exercise. So with regards to exercise, in terms of the amount of exercise, really, if you can exercise every day of the week, that's great. If you can do at least 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise, the way you're kind of getting your heart rate up 5 days a week, that is important also in terms of maintaining physical health. We talked about water already. And then minimizing stress. You mentioned that we talked about minimizing stress, and that's correct. Getting proper rest is important as well. And so thinking about each of those or doing each of those practices will go really a long way in terms of maintaining physical health. And then from a spiritual standpoint, we talked about the importance of, kind of remembering, making sure that we have oneness between our thoughts, our words, and our actions, and the degree to which that really helps to support our spiritual health as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right, I found the message. So I've been working on this ever since. But I'm so delighted to be able to say something now. All I've heard a lot today, and I appreciate that. And one of the things I've heard is that we are clear about what some of the issues are. And I might say that might be why only 4 people responded to what I had asked you to send. Only 4, and that's why I have not responded. Therefore, it is 4 elders, and therefore I think that is important that you know that what that means in conjunction with what I've heard today means that you recognize some of the issues, but you have not done something about them. And I appreciate you recognizing them. You need a mediation committee from among you who people will come before and submit to. In fact, I'm writing some issues right now about commitment and commit and submit. I'm writing that apart, saying that African Center groups must be able to do that, or else they will fall apart. Commit, submit, and commitment. There are 3 different things, but it is important that you recognize the issues. But if you do nothing about them, you don't submit to solutions, then nothing is going to happen. Taiwan is too strong of an African organization to allow that to be a thing that will bring about defeat or stalemate, not stalemated. And so I would just say to you, a big decision has to be made. A big decision has to be made. You can bring in consultants all you want to. If you don't submit to their solutions, nothing is going to happen. The principles that I've talked about in that book always had a development team, a support team, or a resolution team at every age level. That needs to take place. We all fall off the path sometimes, and we need help to get back on it. But we need to submit to that help. Is that? I hope that's. I was sitting here just bubbling, but I couldn't say a word. So anyway, I'll just stop there. If you have any response to that, certainly I'll try to respond to it. Rima, I'm not going to take away from you. You've done a wonderful job, and so I don't want to take anything away from what you've done.
No, it's necessary. That's family talk. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'm glad you found the button.
Yeah, I got this.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Looking through my notes.
While you're looking through your notes, it's good to hear your voice, Baba, and please give Mama Nyambi my love, our love. So, Dr. Rivas, as I was considering what you and Elder Lona were discussing, I thought about my personal situation in that I'm a transplant patient. And, one of our first family reunion t-shirts had on it, "My family is my strength." And that is so true for me. And I can't be around my family. And I know there's others out there, who are likened to me, in as much as I am let's just say my immune system is very compromised because of the drugs I'm on for my transplantation. And at the same time, my family is my strength. And I'm reduced to calling my 1,001 nieces and nephews, reminding them how much I love them and I miss them and can't wait to get my arms back around them again. And at the same time, I'm here at home and I know what I do to try to walk off some of that. Well, yeah, that's what I do. I try to walk off some of that anxiety. So I'll walk, and even like you, in that I love my math and sciences and stuff. I will go into one of my books and pick a problem.
Oh, wow.
and work on a solution to that problem, even as I walk,
Right.
to try to de-stress my, both my mental and physical anxiety. So, that's at least one of the ways I deal with the situation I'm in.
Yeah, no, and that's real, and whether it's because of a physical situation, in your case, the immune system, because of the the immunosuppressive medications that you have to take, or somebody because of age or because of another medical condition, whether or not they have to take medications that suppress their immune systems, that kind of separation, or almost forced separation for the sake of survival, while at the same time the connectedness being part of your survival mechanism, is one that's kind of a balance. Balancing those two can be a challenge. Certainly identifying some of the things that can help with the stress and the anxiety around it. It sounds like you've identified some of them in terms of walking or working out a problem or connecting in other ways is, perhaps the best that we can do right now. And I don't know that I have great solutions for the long term on how that we address that. I don't know exactly how to reconcile that, because we do absolutely gain a lot of our positive energy from being in the same space with each other. And I know that one thing that, especially earlier on in the epidemic, that we would do sometimes, related to my parents, was that we would go to their house and just stand outside the door and talk through the screen door. And so, so just we could see each other, even though that we weren't in that same space. And so, I don't know the degree to which that may be possible with some of your nieces in terms of doing those kind of drive-by visits where they're not actually inside with you, nieces and nephews. But it's but definitely continuing to call and hearing their voices, being able to connect on Zoom or some other way that you can actually at least see each other's faces. I think really does make a difference. It's not a substitute, but it can help to, I think, maybe stand in the gap for during this time. And if we think about it in terms of just kind of this being a period of time, and recognizing that or believing anyway that we will get beyond this time at some point, then maybe kind of recognizing and being able to receive those proxies for the direct contact as being ways to continue to sustain us during this time. Then it becomes a matter of reorienting the way that we're thinking about what relationship is, and what's necessary to sustain it. Those are my thoughts on it.
Permission to speak? Yes. Okay.
Oh, it can't
Yes,
come from me.
Phyllis.
I was waiting for something. It can't come from me.
That's okay. I just want to say hi to Mommy Niambi and Elder. It's good to see y'all together. And then I have a question that's directed to Elder Alona. Put your mic back on, babe.
Okay.
The email that went out about gathering the information that Baba needed, was it to the entire village or just to the elders?
The request that Elder Kelsey made was to the elders. It was our elders' conversation.
Okay.
That information went just to the elders. The Mariba had another conversation with the nation builders, but Mariba's talking about.
The elders responded.
That's what it sounds like.
Wow.
Which concerns, so what?
I think we need to resend it for one, and let them know that Baba's still waiting.
Will do.
Okay. Well, if we're getting ready to close, I want to say to Nation Builder Reba, it is so good to see you and hear you. And I can remember, the memory that I have of you most is when your dance company won the trophy for, I don't know if it was city, and you had on that all white. Mm-hmm. I can remember, I can close my eyes and see you clear as day. That's before you were allowed to get your hair pressed or straightened. Mm-hmm. Remember them days?
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for taking the time to join us and speak to us, and that it's been very thought-provoking, and the information that you've given, at least to me, has been very good. So I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. And I appreciate you. And thank you for saying that sounds like an echo.
What in the world is that?
That was me.
Oh. Okay.
I was trying to get back on.
Oh, you was clapping? Oh, I thought you was giving her a clap.
Oh no, because it is really important that you know, and that really all the elders on know that I am I'm very clear about the role that each of you played in really my development over the years. And I as I talk to people, even if you don't know it, and if you don't hear it, or if you don't feel it somewhere in your spirit, as I talk to people, I talk about you all the time, and about really just the fact that I have been just very blessed to have. Oh, there he is.
and that's
how are you? that I've been very blessed by the community of elders that I've had around me, and seeing you all in the model that you demonstrated of nation builder. It was one that I had to follow, that I was able to follow, and I'm very blessed to have had a positive model and a very strong model of nation buildership. One that I could see where the nation builders were working together. Not perfect by any means, because none of us are, but figuring out how to become more perfect together. And that demonstration that you all had, and then just from just all throughout the years. I mean, one of my earliest memories is of Elder Tony, and and of the Kwanzaas and drumming, and and being the keeper of the culture that he's always been. And I could, but I won't start naming names, but really just each of you has played a very significant role in who I am. I mean, you're part of my being. So thank you for saying that.
Before we close, can I have one more comment?
Absolutely. Elder.
You were talking about requesting resending it. I don't want you to do that. I think that the response. I think I have the response already, and I would say to you that it's important for the elders to talk among themselves now and decide what they want to do. Are they willing to submit and commit to each other? And are they willing and the nation builders to talk in terms of, are they willing to submit and commit to themselves and the elders? Because that's where the power lies. It doesn't lie now in just talking about it anymore. I believe that it lies among you making a decision to submit, commit to each other, and bring the power, focus the power on what you then want to do. I don't think that it rests outside of you anymore with any consultants. I probably could have summarized what, if you had given me enough information, I probably could have summarized what you said and made some recommendations based on that. But I'm clear that the response was that I need to talk about that. I need to make some plans for myself, and I need to make some. One plan is that I must submit to my own selves and develop teams in myself that I will submit to in terms of correctness. And I hope that see, because, and I say that for a couple of reasons. Now, if I disappeared from the planet, and I'll remind you of that as long as I'm on the planet. If I disappeared from the planet, you got to have empowered yourself to solve the problems that you confront and not be ashamed of them, admit them, then submit to them, and then solve them. If you don't follow those three stages, then it is not important. You also will have very shortly. By the end, I had to put it off because things didn't work out like I thought they would. You also will have about 11 steps that every African organization, I believe, should at least consider. And now they're not complete. They will not be complete, because I would expect that as you read them, you will see other things, you will know other things that should be added to them. And so I would just say that I will have that to you before the end of September.
Okay. Thank you, Elder Mariba. Thank you. Thank you, Elder Nyambi. Does anyone else have any thoughts, questions, experiences they want to share? Because I know one of our, I can't see, I know there are people on Facebook, but I can't see who those are. But I know one or two of our initiates are on. If they had any comments, thank you, Lisa, for being on. She came out to our Elder Tony's ritual on the last day of the year. We really appreciate your participation. So does anyone else have, Hatem, you've been very quiet, but I know you work in the engineering room. Do we have any other comments, thoughts we want to put out as it relates to being healthy and wealthy and the things that Sister Nation Builder, Dr. Reba Kelsey talked about?
This is Cassandra. And
Hi, Cassandra.
okay, so for the first 45 minutes, I was on the black line and I thought, wow, they are really late. And I called Isatu. Don't laugh, Kwame. And I called Isatu. I could not get on. So, okay, so that is my error. So my question is, because it sounded like you guys were talking about what I am about. You know that. Tony knows that. Kwame knows that. You know that. Everybody knows that. My question is whether or not this conversation was taped. And if it was, how do I, or anybody can hear it again? And these darn technology, I'll master it someday, perhaps.
Permission to speak.
Abel?
Mama Cassandra, how familiar are you with YouTube?
I went to, I thought Blackline, then I went to Facebook because I was talking to Isatu, and then I was started to give up, and I'm like, re-looked at what Alona sent, and I'm like, oh, there's that darn meat Google. Okay, so I'm gonna try that. So even while Sister Reba was talking, then I got knocked off, So that's all I want to know is if there is something so that I can re-listen to the entire conversation.
Yes, ma'am, there is. You could go to YouTube and rehear it. I'm not sure what other venues. Somebody may be doing a watch party or something on Facebook. Where you may be able to revisit it. I know Mama Margarita likes to repost things within the ASCAC study group webpage. So there's a number of venues where you can re-listen to it.
So if I go to YouTube, because I'll try that.
Yes,
what
ma'am.
do I put? Do I put a certain number or what?
You could type in Ginyame.
Okay.
GYENYAME. And then when you see Hatem would be better able to explain to you what's on the page, but when you're on the page, he'll have a list of all the different things that we've gone over. So he'll have the morning toast, the Kujichagali and Ujamaa nights, our programs then. And so if you were to go, let's say right now to YouTube, it would be the first one on our page, on our Jinyame YouTube page.
Okay.
But what you could also do is you could sign up or register for our YouTube page, and you will be sent notices of, or you could be sent notices of what we're doing, when we're doing it. But also, if you're a subscriber, then you could always go to the subscribe button when you get to our page, and that will give you all of the latest broadcasts.
Oh, is that the purpose of the subscribe button?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Also, go to it's on the Facebook page as well. Giami Journey Media on Facebook. I'll pin this one up to the top because our last one was pinned up to the top. So I'll pin this one up to the top when we get done so that other people can see it. I want to say we're growing because we got bombed at least 3 or 4 times. I don't know, some of y'all noticed it. We got bombed. And I know it's kind of messed up, but that means that we making noise. So we growing, and we got haters out there. I want to thank all you haters, and I know not to let you in next time. Thank you.
Oh, is that why, perhaps why I got kicked off twice?
No.
No,
Oh,
no,
oh,
because
my.
I recognize your name. I'm not letting
Okay.
anybody else in our circle that I don't recognize the name or somebody in around me that recognize the name because that's exactly what happened.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you for your comments, and next time I'll send the emails out more often. Does anyone else that hasn't want to make a comment for today?
I would just like to reiterate thank you to Dr. Reba. Thank you, my sister. Just can't say enough. And we can't do enough. So, as Bob was strongly suggesting, we got to get busy.
I'd just like to comment before we close that I was so glad to see my brother Bob Ransom show his face. I have not seen his face for so long. If he didn't, I don't know if he hears me. If he doesn't hear me, tell him.
Unmute, Elder Phyllis.
He's coming.
Very good.
Dr. Kelsey has something to say to you. He was so glad to see you.
Glad to see him, brother.
Oh, Jeff, I just wanted you to know I was so glad to see your face. I see the mustache and the beard that changed a little bit, but I'm so glad to see you.
Same here, brother. Same here. Y'all doing all right?
Yes, down there.
Good, good. Yeah, well, I dyed this so that my friends, I'll be like my friends, but I really don't have gray beard.
Okay.
You gotta represent, I see Tony there, so Tony's is real,
All right.
Y'all be healthy. Y'all take care.
You too.
All right.
If we don't have any other comments, Elder Tony, you want to send us off? Elder Tony, unmute. He might be having issues muting.
Touch your ears.
Elder Tony.
What? You hear me now?
Yeah.
Say the warrior does not build his shield on the battlefield.
Okay.
And the nation builder does not build what on the battlefield. And the elder does not build what on the battlefield. Uh-huh. Thank you very much, all of y'all. Elder Kelsey and the Kelsey family, y'all mean so much to us, so thank you very much. Ashe.
Okay. Ashe.
Ashe, thank you.
Healthy and wealthy and wise.
All right.
Thank you, Reba. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Reba, I saw a little face over there. Is that one of your children?
Hi, Shari.
Hi, Grandmommy.
Hi.
Very good.
Very good. Very good.
Whoa.
is that you, Reba?
Yes.
I tell you, this check was up a trip, boy.
I know.
Hey, who's that over there? Right.
Sorry.
Hi.
Yeah, hey. All right. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Minute by minute,
hey,
hour by hour.
South
You lose your history, you lose your history, you lose your power.
Yeah.
Minute by
All
minute,
right. What's up?
hour by
Okay.
hour. You lose your faith, you lose your faith, you lose your power, you lose your power. If it is to be, it's up to me. It's up to me. I feel good about myself. I feel good about myself. I feel good about the people around me. I feel good about the people around me. I feel goodness all around me. I feel goodness all around me. And it will follow me for the rest of my life. And it will follow me for the rest of my life. Cause I walk with good. Cause I walk with good. And I talk with good. And I talk with good. And I am good. And I am good. And that feels real good. And that feels real good. Good, better, best. Good, better, best. Never let it rest. Never let it rest. Until your good is your better. Until your good is your better. And your better is your best. And your better is your best. Black people. Black people. You were once great. You were once great. You shall be great again. You shall be great again. Lose not faith. Lose not faith. Lose not courage. Lose not courage. Go forward. Go forward. Uplift the race. Uplift the race. Harambe. 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 Harambe.
I am a genius. My ancestors were geniuses. My ancestors have made me a genius in all that I think, say, and do. I must declare myself a genius. I am a genius. Whenever I am myself, I practice my geniusness and do great things. All my thoughts, choices, and deeds must express my geniusness.
I am a genius. My decisions must always be in the best interest of myself, my family, my people, and my God. Only then will I and everyone I know that I am a genius.
I am a genius. At all times, my geniusness must reflect my culture. My geniusness must serve my God. My geniusness must make me be one in love and harmony with my family. My geniusness must protect my people. Yes, at all times I must demonstrate excellence because I am a genius. What is a lion without his pride? What is a whale without his pod? What is a monkey without his troop? What is a wolf without his pack? The answer is very simple. They are the same thing that a human being is without a tribe.